This program is powered by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, a Feature Group USA production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association. According to SHRM, 63% of HR professionals say they were not formally trained before stepping into a leadership role. Wow, that's a lot. Strap in. We're about to get fired up as we talk about getting prepared for HR leadership on This Week at Work.
This program is powered by AIM Employers Association. Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode.
If I'm an entry-level HR professional and I like to become an executive HR professional, what does that take? How do I develop myself, my skills, and be prepared for that transition? Burt and I both spend a lot of time developing people and helping them become prepared, whether it's through legal updates or through training programs. And as I'm meeting people who are being promoted, they have less skill, less knowledge, less experience than the people before them. So they might be getting promoted sooner, may even be getting promoted on the same time scale, but their knowledge bank is less. And therefore, they're making decisions that maybe aren't always as informed.
What's keeping you up at night? Let's face it together now on This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Burt, good morning. How you doing over there today?
Good morning, Phil. I'm doing well. I don't know. All of a sudden, you blink and it's October.
I'm telling you, time is flying and it is going quick. I have a lot of conversations with individuals in different stages of their career, and often it centers around developing their career and being more prepared for the job that they are pursuing or hope to one day achieve. Sometimes that happens during career transitions and someone's wanting to make a change, but a lot of times it just happens with a young professional who's just coming out of college and trying to get started and looks around and says, hey, how do I get to that job out there that someday be more prepared for a senior level role? And that's an interesting question. I thought today we should focus on that a little bit because companies don't afford the same process of learning that they once used to afford. I know, at least in the process of learning that I went through as I was growing as a professional. And I'm curious what that looks like from your seat as well. But those types of things really get me fired up because all too often I hear that from business leaders, HR person is just not ready to take the role of leadership. We want them to be in a leadership role, but they're not ready for the leadership role. And when I look back at how the individual has been developed, it's obvious to why they're not ready. Do you see those same challenges in the legal field, Burt?
Yeah, of course. It's interesting. I mean, you could think of leadership sort of as the chicken and the egg theory, or are leaders born or are they made? And I think it's some of both. But I think that as far as leadership goes, there's especially in HR or in law or in the business community, there's no substitute for time and experience. And you get a lot of younger people in the workforce these days who, like you said, they look out there and they see some leaders in an organization and they're thinking to themselves, I want to be there, or how can I get there? And sometimes it takes time. It takes time and experience.
It does. And I know I was an extremely lucky individual, and I landed in some very, very good jobs with great employers that did take time and made investments to develop in my experience and learning. And I know not everyone gets that opportunity, but there are things that we can do, and want to get into that as we're trying to develop the professionals under us, and particularly those people that are my age or or even older like you, Bert, that, recognize we have a duty to bring other individuals along and help them be prepared. It's something that I take serious, and we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go through the program. But first, we got a lot to talk about with this government shutdown and lawyer on the clock. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Phil.
All right, Nick, pull that lever.
Curious about a case that could wreck your workplace? Lucky for you, we have a lawyer on the clock.
So, Phil, you mentioned the government shutdown. So, again, to use our phrase and a commonly used phrase, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the federal government, to some extent, has shut down. Caused me to go back and look a little bit. The most significant shutdowns of the federal government, Phil, did you know that it included a 35-day shutdown going back to Trump's first term? That was 2018. 2019 area, and the government shut down. It was a dispute over expanding the barriers on the U.S.-Mexican border. And then it took me back a little bit further. There was a 21-day shutdown from 95, 96 area during the Bill Clinton administration. And that was over opposition. Get this, over opposition to major spending cuts by the Democratic Party. How about that?
What?
Yes,
What?
you heard that.
You mean, are we flip-flopping here now?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then there was a 16-day shutdown in 2013 during the Obama administration. I'm going to give you one guess as to what that was over. See if you can take your memory back.
I'm going to have to guess immigration.
Nope.
Or health care.
Yep. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare.
Okay.
So that was shut down. That was a 16-day shutdown. So, like I said, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that this federal government has shut down, and it has some impact on things. Nick, I don't know if you can do this as a live exercise for me, but what does that mean for some of the federal agencies and such? So if you Google right now the NLRB, and you click on the NLRB's website, or you want to find out who the current board members are on the NLRB, that's what you get. You get a page not found return error, error 404, I think it is. If you take out the lead-in or the postscript there and just Google the NLRB itself, you see that they have a new landing page which talks about the government shutdown. And this is kind of across the governmental agencies right now. So the federal shutdown began yesterday after Congress did not reach an agreement to continue to fund the federal agencies. Most of these agencies, in fact, I think all of them have issued contingency plans to furlough staff while keeping some essential functions operating. So I'm going to talk just real quickly about the three.
Are you suggesting that the NLRB is not an essential function?
Well, some of the NLRB's emergency operation contingency plans, they have some for emergencies right now, but by and large, they're not operating. So let's talk about the Department of Labor, the EEOC, and the NLRB real quickly. So according to the Department of Labor's most recent shutdown contingency plan, the agency has paused work by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Veterans Employment and Training Service, Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, although I'm not sure what that consists of these days, the Office of Disability Employment Policy, the Women's Bureau, Office of Administrative Law Judges, Administrative Review Board, Benefits Review Board, and the Employees Compensation Appeals Board. So those have been shut down. Workplace safety agencies such as OSHA, the Mine Safety and Health Administration will continue to respond to imminent threats to human life, investigate child labor violations, and conduct mine safety investigations, process disaster, dislocated worker grant applications, and address legal cases or investigations at risk of being lost due to the statute of limitations. So those are some of the essential functions they are going to be doing. The EEOC has significantly reduced its workforce. According to the agency's contingency plan, the EEOC plans to keep about 128 employees while furloughing the rest of its approximately 1,814 employees. These employees will ensure that new charges are docketed. They will continue to litigate cases where a continuance has not been granted and preserve the, quote, security, integrity, and viability of the EEOC's information systems. They will not begin any new investigations right now. They will not conduct mediations or hearings or process Freedom of Information Act requests right now. And then let's talk about the NLRB real quickly. They will discontinue case handling, outreach, and public affairs during the government shutdown. The NLRB will continue necessary court actions. The Office of Inspector General hotline and an emergency contact will remain active. The agency plans to have about half of its workforce, 1,247 employees, continue working, while 1,237 will be furloughed. Interestingly, I've got a lot of NLRB cases going on right now, and I received notices in those cases yesterday about the government shutdown. I have one case where, on behalf of a client, we're actually suing the NLRB in federal court, challenging its constitutionality based on the Fifth Circuit case that we've talked about previously on this program. And yesterday, the government attorneys for the NLRB filed a motion to stay the case pending during the pendency of the government shutdown. So that kind of covers the top hits there on the government shutdown. Now,
Wow.
one other thing I do want to mention about the government shutdown, Phil, is our president, and he's been quoted as saying that this shutdown, this move that he's attributing to the Democrats for failure to enact his pass a budget measure, that it's going to be, quote, bad for Democrats and, quote unquote, irreversibly by them, irreversible, because he is going to cut vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like, end quote.
And they being Democrats is
well,
what you mean by they. Yeah.
Later in the Oval Office, he said a lot of good can come from shutdowns, including laying off federal workers who are Democrats and undermining initiatives they support. And then he said, we could get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things. So it shows a little bit of the hostility going on over this budget dispute. Democrats blaming Republicans, Republicans blaming Democrats, and meanwhile, a lot of the government is shut down right now.
Yeah, that's I've seen those same type of quotes, and it gets very aggressive. I know during these times. It's interesting. Each time this happens under one of the presidents, it doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's always the other party. And I know people understand what all that means is who you're going to blame things on and so forth. But the reality is there probably are some good things that are needed and services that people need in order to sustain, important things in life, and those things become at risk. And sometimes it's the citizens that are benefiting from some of these programs that suffer the most, more than the politicians. Burt, talk to me about air traffic controllers, and maybe there's people that have to get on an airplane here soon, and what does that mean for them going through security and their flight safety?
Yeah,
anybody that might be jumping on a plane soon?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I might be later tonight. My understanding is that those are essential government functions that will continue through the shutdown.
Yeah, and what I've heard, just I know a lot of our listeners do travel. That's kind of why I bring it up. Is that TSA is considered essential. They'll be required to work but not be paid. That's what I've heard. And they said to expect maybe long delays through security, just due to the fact that many people may not show up since they're not being paid. And I certainly understand that. I can't imagine, I love my workforce, and I know my workforce loves working here. But if I said, hey, I just need everybody to show up until someday in the future, we're not going to pay you, and maybe no promise of back pay, I don't know quite how that works. I'm not sure everyone would show up. You know? Yeah, I might be here by myself. Yeah.
And, all I need is
Phil,
a pilot to show up, and I'll get my own drinks I'll get my own drinks. Just me and a pilot, we'll be good.
hey, Nick, they're primarily there for your safety, not your health and comfort. Okay.
That's right. That's right. All right. Anything else, Bert?
I got plenty more to talk about if you want to continue a little bit. Why don't I cover one more just because it's kind of relevant here. So right now, Phil, we've talked a lot on the program. The National Labor Relations Board itself, we've talked. It consists
Sure.
of 5 seats in Washington, D.C. There's 5 board members. Do you have a guess right now as to how many board members there are filling those seats right now out of the 5?
Let's see. I'm going to assume there's 2, and I'll explain my guess, right? Because I'm not sure it was ever completely full under Biden's administration, but he would have had the ability during his term to at least appoint 3 in the way that the seats cycle through. So he would have appointed 3 Democrats, and maybe those seats didn't get filled exactly. I know you always share this with us.
Yep.
And as they expire off, we probably have 2. It's not enough for a quorum.
Well, you're close. You're really
Okay.
close. There's one right now. There's
Oh, yeah,
one
geez.
NLRB board member. You're right. During the bulk of the Biden administration, the board was at 3-1, 3 Democrat appointees, 1 Republican appointee, and because of the staggered nature of those terms, that we're down to 1 right now. And and it's a Democrat board member. His term expires August 27, 2026. So he'll be on there for a while. President Trump has nominated 2 people to fill 2 of those 4 vacancies, which would then restore a quorum to the board for the first time in quite a while. And so the President Trump has nominated, like I said, 2 people. One is the last name of Mayer, and one is the last name of Murphy. So 2 M's.
Okay.
And so I'm bringing this up because it's really interesting. The nominee, Mayer, he had been Boeing's top labor advisor and previously worked at Intercontinental Hotels Group, MGM Resorts International, and a company called Aramark. And he began his career at management side labor firms, much like I have done. And interestingly, our own Senator Josh Hawley really grilled grilled Mayer yesterday during the questioning and really zeroed in on the strike at Boeing. And what he talked about, what Hawley talked about, was what he described as perceived favoritism by Boeing for its unionized workers in Seattle. Last year, Boeing agreed to give upfront $12,000 bonuses and 38% raises across 4 years. And that is significantly higher than what Boeing and the union have been talking about here in St. Louis. For his part, Mayer denied advising Boeing on those negotiations. And he was asked by Hawley if it would be fair for the Missouri workers to be paid what the Seattle workers are paid. And he answered that, quote, there are a number of factors that come into play with how employees are paid. And then Hawley kind of abruptly cut him off. So interesting kind of dynamic there, kind of zeroing in right here on some things going on in the St. Louis area.
Yeah, and I know you've been involved in plenty of union negotiations as I have, and particularly for large employers. And I've been very close to the Boeing organization with my time at GKN Aerospace here in St. Louis and globally. But the reality is, in my opinion, is, because one worker in one place of the country is paid and rewarded in a competitive way doesn't mean another worker in another part of the country gets that same level of pay and reward. And it really does create a rub that people struggle to understand, right? I mean, the negotiating committees don't, they can understand a cost of living is different, right? But the percent increase, but there are a number of factors that go into that. And I would expect Holly to take the position that he's taking and cut off because, he is in a way representing some of those workers here in Missouri under that are on that strike. So,
Yep.
I mean, when we talk about this is maybe a great segue into developing, an HR professional. But when you talk about understanding the business and the economics of business, particularly if you're part of a large company and you have workers in different parts of the country doing similar tasks, but on different business lines that you get paid different rewards for. As an organization, your margins are different, the cost of living is different, the competitive market is different, the
Taxes are
productivity.
different.
Taxes are different, productivity is different. There are all kinds of factors that go into that. And it makes it really difficult, particularly when people don't like the message, even when the message is true. And that's great development for a young business person. I often say the best development I ever had came from my labor relations experience. And it's just a great field. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of labor. I won't say unfortunately. There are not a lot of opportunities for young HR professionals to get that kind of experience today. And I'm not sure everybody has the appetite for it as well. I mean, it's a gut-wrenching experience, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's with unionization in the United States and the private sector down to 6% of the private sector workforce. You're right. There just aren't those kind of opportunities for people to kind of gain that experience. But people do gain experience in plenty of other ways. And Phil, it kind of makes me think there. What are some of the things that get you fired up on the topic of leadership?
Yeah, well, let's get into it. The first thing that really gets me fired up as we get into that is when leaders expect their HR professional or any leader in their business to be at a point of knowledge, of understanding, but they've made no investment to help them understand. And I started this out by saying I've been very lucky to work for employers that always invested in my skill development. And let me give you an example what that means. So when I joined as part of a management program, right, it was a program that whether you were in the technical path of leadership or you're in the people management path of leadership, you went through a program. And so for me, that program was outlined, it was prescriptive. And, really for the first almost 18 months, I never did the job I was hired to do. I was learning to do the job the way that the organization thought it would be most valuable. So here's what I mean by that. So you would learn, you go through your orientation, and then I would put on my work uniform and I would go out and I was a first line supervisor for 4 months. I mean, just imagine you're in HR and a lot of our listeners are in HR and you're put out in a production environment to be a first line supervisor. Oh, and by the way, on third shift. Right? It wasn't the day shift. They weren't going to give me that job. It was the third shift job.
You were a youngster at that time, Phil. You could stay up late.
I had no problem staying up. I just didn't want to do it. And it wasn't, productive for my family for all the same reasons that people talk about today. But I did it, right? And the things that I learned definitely helped me later in life become better at serving that part of the business. And then after that, you went into quality control. All right. Well, that was a different cycle. And then after that, you would go into finance. Now, I know by working with HR pros all the time, I go, okay, who in here really believes, they understand the P&L and how the financial management of the business is operating, and could stand up and train someone on a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. And there are very few hands that go up. And that's a problem when you say, well, I wanted to be at the seat. I want to be in the seat at the table. but I can't explain the profit and loss statement or the balance sheet, understand how these things are impacting the business. What is it like on third shift when there's a lack of resources? So how do I earn my seat at the table as well? I think you have to cycle through some of those roles and experience that. And it's not always desirable, but it does set a foundation of knowledge and understanding. But I'm just saying that those are the most important things in my mind, that it comes to learning and becoming competent as a business leader first, then an HR leader second. But let's get into some of the questions I have prepared for you, Bert. Are you ready for
All right.
that? Go back to
Are these the kind I can't get wrong?
these are the ones you can't get wrong.
All right.
You know the routine here. I'm going to read you the question. I'll give you a few options, and then we'll talk through it. So, what's causing the faster promotions in HR today? Right? Flatter org charts, fewer mid-level managers, turnover creating advancement gaps, and pressure to reward tenure with title changes.
Interesting. I'd say in the wake of COVID and a lot of an aging workforce with a lot of younger workers coming in to fill those roles, I'm going to say turnover creating advancement gaps.
Yeah. That one I definitely would have no argument with. And I think if depending on the size of your organization, the flatter the organization, the fewer mid-level managers you might have. And therefore, I think there's an advantage. One is I might learn a whole lot because I'm going to be asked to work up and down the organization at different levels at different times. But if you're in a smaller business, I might lean towards that option as well.
Great.
All right, you ready for another one?
Yeah, let's do it.
What are the biggest risks of promoting too fast? Inconsistent or risky employee relations decision, misunderstanding of legal obligations, poor leadership that impacts culture.
I mean, all of those are spot on. I guess I'd try to lean toward number one, inconsistent or risky employee relations decisions. Which kind of gets me to probably the thing I see most frequently regarding leadership, and that's the idea of a lot of times, and this is really, really bad for business and the employees. A lot of times you get businesses, they promote their best performer
all the time.
Yeah, and sometimes those best performers don't make the best managers or the best leaders. And it's really bad because at the end of the day, when that doesn't work, you lose a best performer, and the company loses that investment that they made in that best performer, and it's really a lose-lose. And I think businesses really need to be careful, and that kind of leads into or goes hand in hand with promoting too quickly. Your best performers don't always make the best managers or best leaders.
And that one is we had joke here a lot with our partner Tim in our marketing department here, and we know that like he will say it's universal. Everyone understands. He speaks in this big absolute. And in my mind, it is universal. Everyone understands promoting your best performer isn't always your best option. But I see that mistake continuously happen where we promote people to a point of incompetence. And I'm not sure why we always do that other than we like the person, we appreciate the person, we don't have a lot of other options. Therefore, we reach in and do that, or the person wants even to be promoted, but the reality is they're not the type of leader you need, and it just creates a problem. I could talk all day about options and how you manage that and how you give them the role in a temporary way so that they have a safe path back to where they're good at. How do you help them save face if they don't succeed? All those types of things. But recognizing that management and leadership are not the same as individual contributors in the way that an indication of success that someone's going to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's get one more in here, Burt. How can emerging HR leaders prepare for executive roles? Seek mentorship and ask to shadow senior HR leaders. Enroll in training programs on leadership, compliance, and strategy. Request stretch assignments to gain exposure.
Yes, Phil, all of those. They can do all of those things. And if you have employees who are actually seeking out those opportunities and have employees who are willing to enroll in those types of programs and make those types of requests, that in and of itself shows some initiative and potential leadership. Not everybody wants to do those sort of extras. And, sometimes your best performers, like we were talking about before, they're great at doing their job, but that's all they want to do. They just want to do their job. They don't want to do those extras, even though they may be great performers. They're not cut out for leadership, and they don't want to be cut out for leadership. But when you have employees who are expressing the desire to learn and to further themselves and grow, those are the employees that I would suggest the organization wants to back. And I'm not talking about people who are just paying lip service to it because they think it's going to be a path to an automatic path to advancement. You have to find those employees who are genuinely interested in those opportunities because they genuinely want to be in a higher position and further their careers. They don't want to just check off boxes so that they can get a raise.
Yeah, and you talk about something extra, and something extra today sometimes is hard to find, right?
It
I
is.
mean, we all have boundaries around ourselves as individuals coming out of COVID more than ever before. I don't want to come into the workplace. I want to be on hybrid. I need flexibility, my work-life balance. I can't work this shift because of that problem or whatever the challenges are. And I'm not saying any of them are not legit challenges. But when someone asks me, how do I identify a good leader and what's going on or the potential of a good leader? First of all, they're never telling me no. They're always asking, okay, how can we do that? And they're looking for effective and meaningful ways of getting the job done to solve problems. Because as leaders, that's what we are, is problem solvers. And the other thing we point out often as leaders is we're not following anyone if we're truly leading. Right? Just it's in the word, you're leading. Well, who are you following if you're leading? If you're at the head of the line, right, and you were a little schoolboy, I can just imagine little Burt walking in line and he would run to the front of the line after recess. You weren't really leading, right? Because the teacher was in front of you. The teacher was leading or telling you where to go. But it's that type of concept of thinking that there won't be answers, there won't be a clear path. It may not have been done before. And you got to be able to be comfortable in that environment if you're looking to lead. Now, if you're looking to manage, that's a different conversation. And I think that's where we start getting into the differences of individual contributor, manager, and leader. And those are maybe topics for another day. However, let me just cover a few things. If you do have an HR professional, it's interesting. They'll send them to an FMLA class. They'll send them to a class on the EEOC or what's happening with work life, or not work life, with time and attendance, all these things. Send them, try sending them to our Principles of Leadership program. It's our flagship program. It's about leading. It's about communicating. It's about problem solving. It's about dealing with difficult employees. These are the things that I don't see HR professionals show up at. I see supervisors show up at. But it's a great program for HR pros to come in and get those skills, and they're cross-functional and they can serve them in any direction that they go to. So check out those programs on the AIM website. You can get there at AAIM. EA.org and click on the training programs and you'll see our schedule. We have those available online or also in person. Those are up, that's up to you and your convenience. But Burt, we're going to be back here next week at 7:30 Central Time. And until then, let's go out and be good to someone. Take care.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, and make sure it's on your calendar every week. Ask your burning questions anytime and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. Just go to hrask.org and be sure to leave a review wherever you catch our show to help other HR pros find us as well. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.